Welcome to Platform Analytics. We have a great session in store for you today. Last session before Knowledge, super exciting. Hopefully everybody's going to Knowledge next week. But yeah, we want to kind of just go over some really good new features that come with Yokohama and are super excited about that. I'll quickly get through the logistical information and then we'll get directly into our content. So as usual, cooperate. There we go. As usual, these are always for you. We try as hard as we can to bring fresh ideas, better understanding, and practical guidance. And we will do that again today. This is being recorded, so please feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy. You'll have the session at your fingertips after it's done, and I'll edit it and I'll get it out there in the community and also on YouTube. Please feel free, and you are encouraged to ask questions, but we just ask that you use the Q&A rather than the chat. Chats are great for hellos and all of those great things, but put the questions in Q&A if you can. That way the other panelists that are on can monitor those questions and maybe get those answered while content is actually happening. So Safe Harbor, I don't necessarily know that we have anything in here today, but always a great idea to bring it up. There very well could be something said that is Safe Harbor, so keep that in mind as you're listening today. And I am Thomas Davis, and we have Lav on today who's going to actually present and demo data snapshots and platform analytics. Super exciting. And we have Dan on, and I believe that Marta will be here, and also Tara, which is always great to see Tara when she shows up as well. So with that, we are going to talk about data snapshots and platform analytics. So if you're not familiar with that, or even the phrase of that, what that all means, the session today is to help you understand that and hopefully get you geared up and excited about going and using data snapshots, pushing in that direction. And of course, we do have some knowledge sessions as well that are geared around this and some other collateral that we'll give you after the session is complete today. So with that, Lav, if you are ready, you are more than welcome to take over and we can go from there.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, I'm gonna take the screen share. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining this Platform Academy session on data snapshot and giving us this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Love Jatak, and I'm part of the Platform Analytics inbound product management team for close to 5 years now with ServiceNow. And I'm very excited to be speaking to you today about this new innovative product capability that we have built that will unlock many great values. But to start with, it addresses a long pending ask from all of you, which is to support more than two levels of breakdown in PA indicators. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So I'm going to briefly touch about the problem statement. Performance analytics indicators help you measure trend of the relevant business KPIs and provide visibility into your processes over a period of time. And it does it today by taking snapshots of the KPIs scores at regular interval of time, usually a day, and then allows you to visualize that trend, right? Not only it snapshots the KPI score, but it also snapshots the score of defined breakdowns. And there can be many defined breakdowns of a KPI. So now there have been a long-standing limitation of PA that it only allows you to filter a KPI with only up to two levels of breakdowns. For example, you have a KPI here called new incidents. You want to now filter that KPI using state, priority, and category, right? More deeper you go into the data, more critical insights you unlock. The PA indicators today only allow you to apply two breakdowns. That means like the third filter of category will not even apply. Now, this limits the ability of business users to go deeper into the data and get relevant insights. Not just the inability of going deeper into the data, for business users, this limitation also adds a lot of overhead for PA admins. Now, PA admins now have to create more specific indicators, more indicators by moving some of these filters into the indicator and indicator source conditions, which essentially means more indicators, even more dashboards. So more configuration and more time spent on that configuration. And with that, it also trickles down as an overhead for data collection. More indicators mean more collection because PA currently snapshots and stores scores at an indicator level. Right. So to solve this problem, we have built this new capability called data snapshots. Now, this is an enhanced architecture of performance analytics indicators, which is quite different from how current performance analytics indicators work. Right. Currently, performance analytics pre-aggregates the indicator and breakdown level scores, and then stores those snapshot or the pre-aggregated scores for the defined frequency of the indicator, right? And because it pre-aggregates, it cannot kind of pre-aggregate for all combinations of breakdowns. With more breakdowns configured on an indicator, a lot many configuration like combination of scores that need to be kind of pre-computed, and hence the collector does not scale, and it cannot do more than two. Now, in comparison, data snapshot, what it does is it's based on a well um, defined principle in the analytics world, which is like change data capture, right? Which is basically that it snapshots the raw data records rather than the scores. So it doesn't pre-aggregate scores, but it actually performs the aggregation dynamically on the fly to compute the score. And because of this flexible architecture, it allows you to do multiple levels of breakdowns while analyzing your indicators. In fact, there is practically no limit. You could apply any number of breakdowns and go deeper into the data. Now, this capability is available for PA customers starting Yokohama release. Of course, there are some limitations and licensing requirements around it because this is like the first release where we are supporting this, which I will talk about in next slides. But also to note that, you can very easily and seamlessly activate data snapshots for your existing indicators. Um, it does not require any migration or lengthy setup, just a few clicks, and you're all set to go. System will take care of everything behind the scenes automatically. And I will actually touch upon the activation flow in the later slides. So before we kind of go into the activation flow and how you can enable this capability, I think it's important for us to kind of spend some time understanding how data snapshot works and visualizing probably how it is different from the current PA way of doing analytics, right? So I've taken this example of incident table here, and let's imagine like we have to create some KPIs on top of this incident table. But there are two aspects to call out when data snapshot differs from existing PA. The first one is the collection, data collection and storage. Well, while current, as I earlier said, like while current PA uses data collector jobs to pre-compute scores for predefined KPIs and store only the snapshot of scores in a PA table, scores table, which roughly would look something like this, right? So you have a indicator, number of open incidents, then for a certain day, week, or year, whatever the frequency is configured, you have like, hey, on this day, the score was 10, 5, 3, and then you have like same snapshot of scores for breakdowns. Now, in contrast, the snapshot, data snapshot capability, it keeps track of changes happening on the table. For example, in this case, as the inserts, updates, or deletes are happening on the incident table for the relevant fields, which are configured on the KPI, which are typically your breakdowns, your aggregate field, or your condition fields, the snapshot will basically start capturing those changes into a data snapshot data source that we maintain internally on the PS side. So in this example, if you see like an incident one here changed, moved to the state of open on 21st April 2025. Then it didn't had any change till 23rd April 2025. And then we're in at that point of time, it moved to like in progress. And similarly, like it will store all the change records for the relevant fields on our side. So think of snapshot table as like an enhanced audit table that store change data and relevant for analytics specific fields only. And it is architectured or built to kind of support analytical workloads. Now, it is important to do call out that data snapshot does not track all the changes, right? It only tracks this and store the changes to relevant fields, which are usually breakdown, aggregate, and condition fields of the indicator. The second aspect where it differs is how the data is queried for visualizations. So in case of current PA, it is simple because it already pre-aggregated scores, just like fetch these scores and like show them in the visualization. But for data snapshot, um, they are dynamically computed. That means like there will be a query similar to sort of a live table query that goes against this data snapshot source table. And then it computes the score for the indicator or breakdown combination, whatever you have selected on the UI. And because of this flexibility, I hope it is a bit more clear why data snapshot can kind of allow you to go deeper and deeper into the data because it doesn't pre-aggregate and does aggregations on the fly. So a quick comparison summary here. As I was saying, like current PA stores aggregated score values, data snapshot stores the uh, raw record for all the necessary fields. And the data collection in the current PA is at an indicator level. That means like you create an indicator, you have to tie it to a data collector job. Then the pre-aggregation happens based on the defined KPI configuration breakdowns. Whereas for snapshot, the collection happens at the table level. That means if I subscribe and track changes for an incident table and all the relevant fields that are needed for me to create 1, 10, or 20 KPIs, the collection will only happen once and the data will be maintained at the table level. And it doesn't matter how many KPIs you later on want to kind of create on top of that data snapshot table. It is just a query uh, on top of the existing table. Sorry. Uh, yeah. Third point is like pre-fetching. Fetch the current PA fetches pre-aggregated scores, whereas data snapshot does the aggregation on the fly. And also, the current PA cannot maintain like the historical state of the data itself. It does maintain the historical state of the score of the KPI basically. So whether it was the open incidents were 10 or 20 or 50, that it can tell you, but it cannot tell you that the incident, what was the state of the incident record uh, at that point of time when the score was computed. Whereas with data snapshot, that is something that you can kind of get. Okay, so I'll quickly talk about benefits. Short-term benefits of this, if you enable it on Yokohama, a Zurich timeframe, one, it unlocks the deeper data analysis. You can go deeper and deeper into data, apply unlimited filtering and breakdowns. Two, it helps you kind of reduce the setup and configuration. You can have more generic indicators and create everything as filters on top of it rather than like making it more specific. So potentially it can lead to kind of reduce number of indicator and dashboard that you have to create. And third, you don't have to configure data collection jobs and like schedule them, monitor them for scores and everything. The collection happens automatically, as I said. The system automatically tracks, subscribes to those tables, track those changes, and stores on PA side. And any indicator that is enabled for data snapshot will just query from the same table. But there are long-term benefits too, and I want to quickly kind of touch upon it. We are currently speaking about data snapshot in the context of multi-level breakdown because that is the initial sort of an outcome we want to achieve here. But we should look at data snapshot as uh, a bit more long term, and this is going to be a shift in the paradigm of how we do analytics in ServiceNow platform going forward. Because of simply the more flexible and robust architecture of data snapshot, there are many advanced capabilities that are limited to be built on like the current PA, but can be supported on the data snapshot architecture. So long term, we see like we can with data snapshot we can kind of bring those sort of an advanced and easy, simple advanced analytics capabilities into the data snapshot and indicator paradigm, and that helps us kind of match the capabilities of some of the leading BI tools in the market. Secondly, we want to democratize indicator creation. I know today it is a very big dependency on admins. Business users cannot simply create indicators because the setup is complicated as well as it requires any misconfiguration can kind of lead to with the data collector jobs lead to uh, performance issues. But with the data snapshot simplified architecture, if you have like uh, changes being tracked on a table and all the relevant fields being tracked. It's like just a simple query on top of the same table. It potentially reduces the chances of performance, and business users can very simply create indicators on top of data snapshot tables. The third one is scalability, right? So the current PA, because of the way it pre-computes everything, we're seeing like it's reaching to the limits of how much data it can process, but the needs for the data are ever growing. We'll pretty sure like in 10 years, our data needs to support would be 20x of what it is today. And to kind of support all that future-looking data needs, we need a more robust sort of an architecture like data snapshot. Okay, I'm going to quickly talk about now requirements and limitations around this functionality and its availability. So there are three broad categories of requirements and limitation. The first one is at instance level. That means like at an instance level, these are the requirements that you should meet before you can kind of use data snapshot. The first one being you need the RaptorDB Pro licenses. Uh, for people on the call who do not know RaptorDB Pro, this is a new database that was launched by ServiceNow around last knowledge timeframe, but it is built for scale. It has many features, and it is basically kind of a fast, more analytical sort of a database that can enable and support data snapshot sort of an architecture and live querying on top of it. So you need the license for RaptorDB Pro. You would need a premium subscription, which is part of most of the Pro licenses. And the instance should not be domain separated because as of now, we do not support domain separation. Of course, many of these limitations that I'll talk about today will be relaxed in future. For example, domain separation is one such limitation which will be relaxed. But as of now, we do not support domain separation. So if these three criteria are met, then you can go ahead and install this data snapshot plugin from the App Store, um, and you should be all set. Moment you install this plugin, all the options around data snapshot enabling, disabling, and collection, everything will be added uh, to your instance. Now, the second level of requirements and limitation are at indicator level. So I want to call out here importantly that not all indicators in the first release in Yokohama are going to be supported on data snapshots, right? So it depends on the configuration of the indicator. I briefly listed down few here, which I consider to be the most critical or most top ones. There are a few others for which I've kind of added the link to documentation here. Um, but at a high level, you can only enable data snapshots for automated or formula indicators. Manual and external indicators are not supported and probably not valid use cases, manual specifically. You should not have scripts within your indicators. That includes like the scripted indicator as well as scripted breakdowns. Um, the indicator should not be a benchmarking indicator. It should have at least one condition. Basically, that is there because to track data snapshot on a table, we need at least one field. And the other one is like an important one to call is like for now we only support one time zone. So if there are indicators that where the same indicator scores are being collected in multiple time zones, to start with, the snapshot table only supports one time zone. Of course, this is again a limitation that will be relaxed in coming releases. And the third one is at a table level, which is basically data volume level. To start with, of course, scalability is one of the key goals. So this is not going to be the limit of the records that we will support on data snapshot. This will obviously go very higher in future. But to start with, we are supporting tables for 30 million, up to 30 million records. And you can track like up to 250 fields on a table, which practically means like you can apply 250 breakdowns if you need to. And systables essentially are any indicators based on those are currently not supported uh, uh, on data snapshots. Okay. Are there any questions we want to take at this point of time, Thomas?
Yeah, I think Dan, you have a few that you flagged. If you want to just start with those.
Yeah, and this is I know it's not definitely me directly, but it's like some good questions that were thrown out there. The quick one, first one was do these snapshots replace the scores table? And I think I could say from a real quick perspective, not it's a yes and no. As Lav kind of said, there will be some indicators that do not work with data snapshots, as he talked about with the limitations. So you'll definitely still need the scores tables for that. And for a period of time, and Lav, you can correct me on this about the amount of time that we will still continue to collect scores even when
Yes.
data snapshots are running. Could you talk to that?
Yes. So actually, some of these things are covered in my next slides, but yes, like it's not
Sure.
replacing the
So I
source
thought,
table. It's like both of them for now will coexist. It's gonna be a choice on admins to kind of enable, let's say, data snapshot on indicators where multi-level breakdown support is requested from business users. What it does basically in a very simple way is that it instead of querying from the scores table, it will start querying from the data snapshot table seamlessly. You can always kind of switch back to this course table, continue collection there, even for the data snapshot enabled indicators. At least for some time, we kind of imagine that. But I'll talk about it more in my
yeah,
coming slides.
fantastic. And if these also have you're going to be talking about soon, which I think you might let us know here, because there's kind of a group of questions that are in general about how and where snapshot data is stored and how it impacts overall instance storage. You know,
Yes.
so I assume we're talking about that coming up, but yeah, that's
It is. So at a high level, obviously, like I'll be talking about data collection in detail in my later slides, but at a high level, just to answer it, we what we do is we create something called data snapshot source tables on PA side, and we store all these snapshot change records on in those tables, which is within your instance. Now, it can potentially lead to a little bit of increased storage, but we don't potentially think it will be too much. In fact, the as I was earlier saying, because of this Raptor DB Pro um, license and restriction that we have, um, Raptor DB Pro is essentially optimized to kind of store data uh, such that using the techniques like compression and all, such that the storage does not bloat up, and you can kind of store like very high volume of data, and then query on top of it like seamlessly. But yeah, I mean, do expect some level of storage increase, but I won't say like it would be too high.
Mhm. So what I'm gonna say is I did go ahead and mark the questions that were about storage and table size and all that. I did mark those as closed. So if after we chat through these next few sections, if you still have questions about it, certainly put them back in the Q&A. One other question I think is good that's kind of somewhat related. The reason we use PA is because we query once, aggregate once, and use many times. If we have to requery very large tables every time we want to see the results of the aggregation, won't that be a lot worse performance? And I think that's probably, I'm guessing, will you be talking about some of this as well? About kind of,
Yes. We will be talking. I don't have like a specific slide around it, but I can quickly talk about it. It again goes back to why we have this Raptor DB Pro license requirement in place. So Raptor DB Pro, in essential, like uses some of that advanced analytical. Think of it like a database that supports scalable advanced analytics, right? So um, there are multiple facets to this question. One is like, can I dynamically on the fly query and without having performance issues? Of course, we probably will not be as faster as PA scores aggregated because it's like just fetching some numbers and showing it in the UI. But we do not anticipate too much of performance issues. Of course, with very large data set, there can be some performance issues, but we also have other mechanism in place, which is like pre-fetching, pre-caching. That means like, you only maybe experience the performance delay once. And next time when you query the same score, it will be very fast because it's going to sort of fetch it from a cache. You can imagine it like a PS score table. right? And it will be faster.
Mhm.
But we have to kind of look at it holistically, right? Performance is one aspect, but then there are a lot of restrictions with the PS scores, which sort of are not going to be there with data snapshots.
Yeah, so I guess, in general, you'd say is that we certainly expect to see performance improvements across the board, but there still are
Yes.
scenarios where extremely large tables, they will still perform better, or they should perform better with data snapshots, but there still could be some scenarios where it's
Yeah.
slower than we would like.
Yeah. In fact, I can take an example, like simply, let's say there's a very big table. The current data collector can struggle to even kind of compute scores out of that
Hmm.
table. But whereas with data snapshot, we should be able to kind of do that.
Yeah, because a big one was like the vulnerable items for anyone who's using SecOps, so
Exactly.
vulnerability response. Yeah, that could have 10 million records pretty easily. And
Right.
you could do a collection on that with the legacy model, but it would be very, very slow, as it could take hours in extreme cases if the
Yeah.
query conditions are not set just right. It could even take more than a day.
Yep.
Um, but with the
Right.
data snapshots, that should absolutely not be the case,
Exactly.
because the way it's storing the data is very different. So, okay, I
Yes.
think so. We got some other questions, but I think we'll try to answer them, and then we will we'll circle back with live questions. Thanks, Laf.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So moving on, I'm gonna quickly talk about and demo how you can activate and enable this functionality on your existing indicators, and then um, what are the basically various options that are available to you during the activation flow. So as I earlier said, like the activation option or enabling data snapshot option on existing indicators is only available to PA admins as of now. And precisely, I guess the reasons are like, there was a lot of collection and storage impact that can happen, right? So, but once, let's say, seamlessly an admin goes to an indicator and then just clicks on a button of enable data snapshot, everything from creating the backend snapshot tables to collecting the data, all of that is seamlessly and managed by the system. At this point of time, after just clicking on that action, admin is not expected to do anything. There's no action expected. You just have to kind of wait, potentially like up to 24 hours, because your scores should be ready by next day. Um, and then that's it. Like you can just go to your existing indicators and visualize those scores. Either go to your dashboards or visualizations or KPI details page and just like start applying more than two breakdowns, and the system will work. So as I said, like enable data snapshot option, you can do it for a single indicator or you can do it in bulk. For bulk, you have to kind of currently do it through the indicator list. Um, and through the indicator form, you can go and find this enable data snapshot button and just click on that button. And just clicking on that button, you should be presented with this pop-up, which kind of checks for the requirements around enabling data snapshot, right? Which we earlier talked about, whether the plugin is installed, whether you actually the plugin is not installed, then you will not see the options itself, but whether the database is the right database, you have necessary licensing, you don't have domain separation, and are you meeting the record volume um, that is set for the instance. And if any of the requirements are not met, you will not be able to continue. But if they are met, you can kind of go ahead and enable data snapshot. Now, as I earlier said, there are not all indicators are supported. So you can activate for one indicator or all indicators. But um, if, let's say, the indicator is not supported with the data snapshot architecture, then you should see immediately like a list of reasons within the indicator form, which will tell you why this indicator is not supported. Right? For example, in this screenshot here, you have indicator that has scripted breakdown or is using a bucket group, because scripted breakdowns usually go along with bucket groups. So this indicator, you cannot enable data snapshot on this indicator. So there's another action that we have provided, which is like update data snapshot status. Now, what it does is like, let's say an indicator is not supported, but it is because of the configuration of the indicator. For example, in the previous example, it was using a scripted breakdown. Now, I as an admin can decide whether enabling multi-level breakdown on that indicator is important for me. For which case I can say, okay, let me just remove this scripted breakdown from this indicator. And that means basically updating the indicator configuration can change the status of whether the data snapshot is supported or not. If you do that, you can click on this update data snapshot status button to immediately kind of see whether this indicator now supports it or not supports it, and then you can enable data snapshots. If you don't click on this button, system still kind of updates the status, but that is done like hourly, it's not instance. So this button basically kind of gives you the option to instantly do it. So let me now quickly go into an instance and demo. Sorry. So the moment you upgrade to Yokohama release, and let's say you already meet all the requirements and you have installed the multi-level breakdown or the data snapshot plugin from the App Store. What you can do basically is go to the PA indicators list, and you should see now two fields here in this table. One is data snapshot enabled, one is data snapshot supported. Now, if you don't see it in the default view, you just basically have to kind of personalize the list and pull it up. But what these two fields basically signify is one is the data snapshot supported field, which is basically what is system determines, right? So when you click on the enable data snapshot option within the indicator or through the list, the system determines whether this indicator is supported on data snapshot or not. So then system kind of sets this field to true or false. True means like it is supported, false means it's not supported. So in the initial setup, you should see both the fields as false, but when you click on the button, then you should see the status being updated on whether it is true or false, right? But system does not let you override it. Now, the second option is a second field that you see is data snapshot enabled, which is basically set as when you kind of enable an data snapshot on an existing indicator. Now, you can enable the data snapshot on existing indicators. You can either kind of go and select from the list multiple indicators and then just say I'll set them to true. Just click on it, and then you basically get this pop-up, which talks about the requirements around data and other plugins that you have. So in this case, we're basically meeting all the requirements and and around the table record volume. So I have this continue button enabled. If I click on continue, it should enable data snapshot for all the indicators that I selected. The other way is you can go to the indicator form itself, and you will see a couple of buttons on the top. An enable data snapshot button specifically is the one which you have to use to kind of enable data snapshot. So you can click on this button. It again will throw you the same pop-up whether you're meeting the requirement and whether you can proceed with enablement or not. So let's say I'm going to proceed and enable data snapshot on this indicator. Okay. So now the system did the processing in the backend, and it basically determined that, hey, this indicator cannot be supported for data snapshot because of these reasons. Like, so you can see these reasons here at an indicator level. Hey, it has a scripted breakdown and it's using bucket groups. Both of these are not supported right now on data snapshot architecture. Okay, so looking at the reviewing the indicator configuration, I see like there is an age breakdown that is being used here, most likely, which is a scripted breakdown to compute duration and also probably bucketed. So if I remove this breakdown, maybe I can enable data snapshot on this indicator. right? So let's see. Okay. So I remove the age breakdown and I'm gonna update this indicator. So now, as I earlier said, like there is an hourly sync job that kind of updates the status of each of the indicator if the configuration are changed. Now, why we have kept that hourly is simply because of like, we don't want to do all of that processing in live, and also like indicator configurations are not updated that frequently. But to kind of do update the indicator, I can click on this update data snapshot status, and it will tell me whether this indicator is supported or not. Okay. Um, Seems like some issue here, but let me click on this enable data snapshot button and click on continue. Yeah, so you can see now the data snapshots are enabled for this indicator after I remove the age breakdown, because the configuration of the indicator now became supported, right? And now you see the enable data snapshot button has changed to disable data snapshot, which basically is an option for us to kind of disable the data snapshots. Now, so that's how you can very simply just enable data snapshot and disable data snapshot for your existing indicators. Now moving back to the presentation, I'm gonna quickly talk about the data collection that happens now. So now, once the enable data snapshot action is complete, right, there's a lot of automated system processes that trigger to create the underlying data tables and collect the data, right? And all of that, as I earlier said, happens automatically. You don't need to create any scheduled data collector jobs. We ship like couple of data collection jobs out of the box, which take care of collecting data snapshot for any indicator or table that you enable it for. So let's spend some time like understanding what happens, right? As I was earlier saying, it does create like data snapshot source tables on the PA side, and then start tracking and storing the change data. If the indicator, when you're enabling the data snapshot, if the indicator fact table, the fact table on which indicator is based on, is not tracked already by data snapshot, then the system will create the necessary table and column and start tracking it. But let's say it was already being tracked because it was enabled for some other indicator on the same table and was using the same columns. Then the system essentially just maps this indicator to the existing table and doesn't like create new tables or start collecting more data. As I was earlier saying, like the collection happens only at a table levels, and if you have the data being collected at a table and all the relevant columns that are needed for the indicator, the system will just map to the existing data snapshot table and not create any new tables, right? Now, the process of overall data collection and source table creation usually takes up to 24 hours, and so score should ideally be ready by next day, and you don't have to do anything from your side there. Yes, and also like it's important to call out, as there was a question earlier, like we are not disabling the classic data performance analytics data collector jobs. They will continue to run in parallel, and this is also kind of kept so that you have a smooth rollout. And if, let's say, some issue happens and you want to roll back to the existing, you can just like click on the disable button and then just go back to the existing way. It just changes the query. That's it, right? Uh, Running both the jobs in parallel does come with some cost, like it can lead to some level of increased storage. So we should consider we should only activate to start with for indicators that really need multi-level breakdown. But as I was earlier saying, overall, I do not anticipate like too much of a storage volume increase for data snapshot specifically. And once the data collection is done, like it's time for like just exploring the indicator score. So you can simply go to your next experience components. It's important to call out that you can only visualize multi-level breakdowns for your next experience dashboards or visualizations or KPI details page. All the core UI components, core UI dashboards, analytics hub, There you cannot visualize more than two levels of breakdowns because those UIs are not created in that way, and we're not going to make changes there. So if you have to visualize multi-level breakdown, you will be able to do it from your next experience dashboards and visualizations. Another important thing to call out is the data snapshot enablement date, enable date, right? So multi-level breakdowns are available from the day data snapshot is enabled and collection is complete, right? So for example, let's say you have an indicator, number of new incidents. You've been historically collecting scores on PS scores table, right? So there are already existing scores for this and certain amount of history. Now you enable data snapshot on this indicator, right? So the system tracks and the changes in the data snapshot table from that day onwards. That means if multi-level breakdowns are to be visualized for that indicator, it will be from that day onwards. But when you go to that indicator, up to two levels, you will see a very seamless sort of an experience. What we are doing here basically is, in this case, snapshots were enabled on 28th November, but you have scores previous to that. So what we are doing is we are seamlessly pulling the scores from PS scores table up till 28th November, and then the rest of the series is being pulled from data snapshot tables, and we are merging it and seamlessly giving you the whole experience. And this will continue to be up to two levels of breakdown. But moment you go for a third breakdown, you will see this message here, or your users will see this message here, which will tell them, hey, multi-level breakdowns is only supported from the day, from this day onwards. So you can only filter with more than two breakdowns from this day onwards, because the previous PS scores do not have that history for multi-level breakdown. Okay, I'm quickly gonna jump into the demo here and kind of show you how to kind of visualize multi-level breakdown. So I have this dashboard here on this instance, and I have enabled multi-level breakdowns for new incidents, but not for open incidents. So let's go to this open incident indicator first, right? So here, if I go and try to apply more than two breakdowns, it basically restricts you now. Like it's not allowing me to select a third one. And if I click on apply, it kind of also disables the apply button and don't allow you to select more than two. So this is pulling history from PA scores table, right? So with if the data snapshot is enabled on an indicator, you will see a bit different sort of an experience where you are not restricted to two level. So here I'm gonna and it's state. So you see, like it's allowing me to select the third one also. In the previous KPI, it didn't allow me to kind of select that. And moment I select the third one, I see this message here. But it's still showing me the whole filter timeline because I haven't applied the filter. Moment I click on apply, I see only data from the time I enable data snapshot on this indicator. Here it is. Okay, similarly, when you go to like dashboards, right? Your dashboards, let's say we apply a filter here. Let's say software network hardware, and then I click on apply. Right. So for the data snapshot enabled indicators, you see it applies all three of them. But for indicators where I haven't enabled data snapshot, it's only taking the first two and ignoring the third one because it cannot kind of apply. So it's as simple as that. And also on the same dashboard, if you have like a time series chart, if you click on the filter panel, you will have like same sort of a message here. It applies all three because it's in support data snapshot, but it only supports after November 28. So previous scores will not be displayed, but rest of the chart should work as now. Okay. Moving on to The last option that I want to talk about is the disabling of data snapshot. So you can, similarly, how you can enable it, you can disable data snapshot in bulk or individually for indicators. You will have a confirmation mob pop-up before you can kind of disable it. Uh, After confirmation, the indicator scores basically, as I was telling, they just behind the scenes just query from the scores table and it will stop querying from the data snapshot table. But it is important to call out that you should make sure that you have an active data collector job before you disable data snapshot. Let's say you've been using it for 3, 4 months, 6 months. Now you somehow, I don't know, some scenario you want to disable it. Just make sure you have an active data collector job which is already collecting scores before you kind of disable on data snapshot, um, uh, so that your business users scores and all are not impacted. Okay, that is sort of it for today, folks. That I wanted to cover.
Okay.
I think we can take questions now.
Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead, Dan. I know you have a lot, and then
Yeah.
I'll grab the ones I
Yeah,
have.
we have, and some of these are also kind of themes, but because one of them, actually, a couple that were kind of based on this on similar things. And the question is listed as, can we report on these example metrics directly? So, like the number of priority changes. If in an incident, so if an incident throughout its life cycle was once a priority
Mhm.
2, then moved to 3, then moved
Mhm.
back to 2, that
Mhm.
will we still be able to track those changes?
Yes, we will be.
And then the
So
second part, yeah, go ahead.
if you create an indicator which is like a high priority incidents, and which is based on like states. So at that point of time,
Hmm.
since we store the state data, we will compute it and
Hmm.
count that incident as a high priority incident. So yes, we
Yeah.
will be able
So
to
you'd
track
still
it.
have, yeah, so
Yes.
you'd still have it based upon, that when the change happened, you'd say a week ago, that'll still
Yeah.
be, but then changed again 3 days ago,
Yeah.
you'll have,
Yes.
yeah, info for both of them. Yeah. The second part of it is
Yes.
also similar to another question about like durations. So
Mhm.
right now, today, in a lot of cases, customers use metrics or SLA definitions to be able to
Mhm.
get durations. So let's say I want to get the duration of how long a ticket stayed in each state, or how long it
Yeah.
was assigned to an assignment group.
Yeah.
Will this account for that?
Yeah, I'm very happy that this question was asked. So for now, it is not accounted. Like in Yokohama, it is not. But as I was earlier saying, that is the sort of advanced analytics that we want to enable. So one of the use cases for us after Yokohama is to kind of allow you to do that. So you should be able to create
Hmm.
state change metrics on these data snapshot tables, and that should answer questions for you like, hey, how many times it was reassigned, what was the duration when it moved from this
Hmm.
state to that state, or like how much time did it spend in each of these states, which today you have to either go with like creating metric instances or but they are also like very complicated. It probably answers you like one question. It cannot come to you like more advanced conditions. So yes, the data snapshot larger roadmap is to kind of allow you to support that in future. Uh, Not
Yeah.
in Yokohama and Zurich.
So what that says to me is that this, because there was a couple of questions about, is this similar to metric definitions and metric instances, and say, yeah, there are similarities, but
Yeah.
outside of the question of durations, data snapshots are going to be much, much easier to configure
Yes.
and maybe and maintain. I love talking with customers about setting up metrics and that, but it's a very technical conversation, and it's really challenging for many customers to understand that they need to look at like a metric instance or a database view that combines the incident with the metric instance to get their
Yes.
data. Here, you don't have to worry. Data snapshots, you don't have to worry about that. There's virtually no overhead of maintenance going forward, and
Yes.
the initial configuration is very, very simple. The other part of that
Yep.
though is the duration. So it doesn't entirely replace metrics yet, but eventually it probably would. But again, if you don't have data snapshots enabled or available, metrics are still the way to go for that.
Yep. In fact, I can talk about some limitations here, right? So, for example, let's say a state changed, but it changed like within a day itself, right?
Oh,
So
sure.
for now, like lowest granularity, we go with this daily, but in future, we are supporting intraday collections on data snapshot tables. That means like you can even see changes happening within the day itself.
Excellent. Let's see. I would try to get through this quick because there's another one that had a couple of them had the same theme about scripted breakdowns and scripted indicators and like
Mhm.
bucket groups. Will this ever be supported? Is that anywhere on
Yes,
the roadmap or is it so okay.
yes. It will be supported tentatively during the Australia release, probably. Is our plans. So we
Because
will
one of the
support most of the capabilities that are there in Classic PA, including scripted
so
breakdowns
yeah.
and bucket groups.
One of the big ones, yes, because scripted breakdowns are always a tough one because we've never recommended, even today, we suggest not, historically, we've always said not to use scripted breakdowns.
Yeah.
However, what you're saying is that eventually on the roadmap, so that support is not going away with the legacy data collector, but there's still the same
So
limitations. It can slow things
s-
down.
yeah, so let me like maybe diverge a little bit on that. So we will support those use cases. For example, when I was showing the demo, we had the age breakdown where it's taking like a duration of two dates, a date diff, and then basically mapping it to a bucket, right? So we can easily simply kind of solve that by providing you some out of the box function where you can kind of do a calculated sort of a dimension, not have to write a script essentially, right?
Right.
So
That,
that is the way we are hoping to kind of solve this, where
yeah.
in future we will allow you to kind of write very advanced but very simple Excel-like formulas to kind of do the computations that are needed, like use functions how you use in
Mhm.
Excel, and not have to write scripts.
Excellent. Good. That's then so it's all kind of moving towards what we would call the citizen developer type of
Yes,
model, even for more advanced PA type of calculations. Quick
exactly.
question on about application scopes and permissions for records. Is that so? Even though domain separation is not supported, are we supporting
Mhm.
application scopes and
Yes,
permissions for records? And I would say, yeah,
yes,
that's true.
yes, we are supporting. Yes.
Yeah.
So
And then
all the
Thomas got
existing, so let me like quickly make more point on that. Dan. So all the existing functionalities, they continue, which work with indicator, they most likely continue to work. Just because you enable data snapshot, it will not change. So application scope, as well as like targets, thresholds, and all the other PA functionalities also will continue to work as is.
yeah. And then I think this is something that's coming up on the roadmap. I don't want to check. Can we configure how close the data snapshot is to the live database? So what I assume we're talking about is in our world, we might talk about that being intraday collections potentially or things like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that's
So
limited
uh, uh,
today, but
yeah. So
you can
currently it
do
is
it. But
limited
yeah,
to day. Yeah. So currently it is limited to a day, but in future we do anticipate that it can become potentially a configuration option for you to select. Like, hey, how frequently do you want to kind of do the snapshot? Do you want to do it like daily or even less than a day? Or maybe, I don't know if the use case is like maybe even more than a day, right? So that is all like still to kind of figure out. And that is on the roadmap. But to start with, it snapshots right now daily.
excellent. Okay. Thomas, did you have a few?
Yeah,
I know we're coming up close to the top of the
yeah,
hour.
we are. Do the content packs for PA dashboards for SPM or ITSM, will they be updated to use data snapshots starting with Yokohama?
No. So that is the enablement of data snapshot is basically in Yokohama specifically in Zurich, those content packs will not be updated by default. It is up to the PA admin's discretion to kind of go and enable it simply using the buttons. But
Okay.
they will continue to be like the existing content packs for now, at least.
Okay. All right. And does the snapshots table have any automatic cleanup activities? For example, the SLA breakdown records only live for 366 days before they're purged. Just curious how long lived these are by default.
So I think it follows the retention period of PA. So I think by default we have like 2 years, and then we have like a cleanup activity automatically.
So whatever existing retention policies will follow the same.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we'll follow the same.
Okay. And then do we need historical data jobs for data snapshot? They heard that you only need daily jobs.
So can you clarify a little bit? Like I think is this so for let's take it like this, right? So data snapshot, um, with to for it to collect history, right? It has to kind of look at all the changes that have happened previously on the table, which uh, sort of lives in audit table, but sometimes it is not complete and sometimes tables will not be tracked. So for now, we don't allow historical, like we basically do not do any history tracking or historical collection with data snapshot. Whatever history you have in the existing PS course is your history. So if you create a new indicator, let's say today, and by default, like right away, enable data snapshot on top of it, it will only track the changes and enable multi-level breakdown from that day onwards. If you need previous history, we recommend you to kind of go and create a PA historical job and collect the history using PA scores. And we will kind of merge and show it in the single timeline. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Thanks. Um, do we still use breakdown sources and breakdown mapping with data snapshot, or is that different
Yeah.
now?
We still use it. So currently we are relying on the existing indicator configuration and records. So that includes like the breakdown mappings to kind of derive which fields and how to kind of break down on that and track them. In future, we are going to kind of also support a very simplified KPI flow on top of the data snapshot tables, which will not require you to do breakdown, source breakdown, mapping, and all of those steps in the indicator creation. You can just select the field on the table and that's it. But that is again a scope on the roadmap. We most likely will do it somewhere in Australia, released tentatively, safe harbor and everything. But for now, like you are required to kind of do all the configuration.
Okay, great. See if we can get a couple more here. So they'd like to ask, do data snapshots take up more space as time goes on? Kind of like they reference VMware snapshots. It's around the question of space it takes over time.
So I think at least in internal experimentation, what we have kind of found out is yes, it will take a little bit more space over time. However, it should take lesser space than what PS scores do. Now imagine like PS scores storing 2 years, two levels of breakdown for 2 years. The amount of space it will take in data snapshot, potentially you will be taking either equal or most likely with very large volume, lesser space than that because you're now only storing the raw record if it changed, right? And then you're querying on top of it. So over time, I believe the storage should not exceed too much, or in fact, in many cases, specifically with large table, it should be lower than what PA scores takes today.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll see if we can get an answer for these last two, and then we'll close out. I know we're at the top of the hour. If anyone has to drop, totally understand. Let's see. Based on the demo, I would need one indicator that could show breaks by my assignment group, assigned to, etc., using snapshots. But if I wanted to show open by age, which uses a script, then I would have to have an additional indicator set up using legacy, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a scripted indicator.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, and then the last one is, will this support additional filter operators such as to filter if a record was ever in a specific state or priority, such as P1, but now it's P2? And Dan, I don't know if you asked this one or not. Sounds like this was
Yes.
contained in the snapshot, but curious how we'll need to set up filters by that specifically with the existing operators. We use either metrics or sometimes process mining to get this data currently since it's contained in the record audit.
Yeah. So we took that question earlier. So as of now, you probably will not be able to set those filters and like query. But idea is essentially in long term to kind of give you the same sort of capability, or in fact, even a bit more simplified and advanced, that you can create these state changes, you can track these state changes and reassignments and the ping pongs and all of that on top of the data snapshot table itself. But we have to kind of make a little bit of changes to how you set up conditions, what fields you kind of specify, and all of that, which as of now we haven't kind of invested time in.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we are a couple minutes over the hour, so I'll kind of go through these other slides really quick. Lav, thank you very much. Great presentation. I know that based off these questions, it sounds like everybody's super excited about it. So long time coming for some of this stuff. So super awesome. Thank you for that, Lav. And of course, Dan and Marta and Tara as well for being here to support. So we do have a little quick hitter video that's out on YouTube that you can definitely share within your organization. Of course, this recording will be out sometime the end of this week, early next week as well. Make sure you're checking out the community, of course, our academy, Now Learning. And then the same little video that I referenced a few seconds ago is also now part of our enablement toolkit. So you can find that as well if you lose that QR code or whatnot. Obviously, Knowledge is next week. Super excited about that. Hope to see all of you there. Hope and would encourage you all to come by our kiosk and say hello to us. These are the sessions that are set up for Platform Analytics. Again, this will be in the attached to the community event as well, but we have some really great ones, and there is one that is multi-level breakdowns and platform analytics. It's going to talk about this as well, as long as some really great other ones that we have. Our SVP is actually going to have a keynote that's going to talk about data and analytics. I'm sure the snapshots will be mentioned in that one as well. And as usual, thank you very much. We appreciate everybody that joined, you spending your breakfast, lunch, or dinner with us. And we will not have a session in 2 weeks because that's the week after Knowledge, but we'll have one on the 28th, and that information will be out there soon. So thank you very much, and we appreciate it. Thank you for joining.